Okay, so today's session is about floor plans. Okay, so we have gone through a lot of exercises, and I'm sure you noticed that it took me a long time to to check all your papers, and then I actually meant to give you a review of how all the exercises should have been answered, except that it takes a lot of time to prepare the slides for it. So maybe I decided to do it next meeting instead of today, so I wasn't able to finish. But for example, I noticed that in the exercise for dimensions, there were a lot of things that went wrong. Maybe you did not understand the drawings. I don't know, because some were not dimensioned, and then there was a lot of problem with arrowheads uh, and placing the arrowheads where they should point. And also, when it comes to the last exercise, Paraline, there was a misunderstanding on the arcade. It's supposed to be like hollow, like a corridor in front, but all of you treated it like a flat surface. I think only two of you got it right. Anyway, so that's why I needed to review to correct all the mistakes, because a lot of some mistakes were very common to everyone. Okay, so it has to be corrected. But for now, let's move on to our new lesson. It's been a long time since we had a session, and I could not really say that long time no see, no, because I cannot see you. I only see your pictures. So floor plans, how to make floor plans. So all of our exercises are meant for all of these succeeding lessons, because this is what you'll be doing until you graduate architecture. You'll be making floor plans, and this is what you're going to do um, when you're professional. Even if you have to do it in CAD, you're still going to make floor plans. Okay, but you have to know how to do it properly. And for this class, it has to be done manually. Okay, you have to learn how to do things manually. Later on, you will be taught how to do it in CAD, and it's very easy. But um, there might come a time when you don't have your computer with you don't have your laptop with you, or any other device, and then you have your pen and your paper, but you have to draw a floor plan. Okay, because you have to communicate to engineers or to your clients or to whoever, another architect. So you have to do it, because especially if you draw a floor plan in front of another architect, and that architect somehow is very good, so he'll just laugh at you. And of course, the conversation will turn like, so you graduated in architecture without knowing how to draw the basics, to do the basics. So that should not be said of you. Okay, so what is a floor plan? So imagine a very large knife cutting through your house horizontally, like the ones in the drawing. Okay, so I don't know what anime character would do this, but when you remove the top and then you look at the what is left directly on a normal um view, meaning perpendicular to the surface, to the horizontal surface, what you see is what we call the floor plan. So it is cut like approximately 4 feet, or 1 to 1.9 millimeter away from the floor line. And so a part of the window is cut, so that's why you see the windows. And then for the counters, you cut it, but then there's the overhead counters or cabinets which cannot be seen. So you have to find a way to indicate it in the floor plan. And that's what we're going to learn today. So I'm presenting here two types of presenting a floor plan or making the drawing. On the left side is the is a presentation drawing, and then on the right is a construction drawing. Now, uh, almost all of these mm, images that I'm using, I copied them from a book in a PDF. I did not have time to remove all the texts like what you see here in the upper right. So I did not have time to remove them. So maybe later, no? But for now, just ignore those little texts there. So you can see now the difference in the presentation drawing. This is what we call the design development drawing. So everything is there, it's scaled. And then, although this one is lacking, for example, it would be better if underneath the name of the room is the size of the space. No? If the living room, for example, is what is 4 by 4 meters, in which case here they're actually using the English system. So on the other side, and then also in the presentation, you see all the furniture. So you're presenting this to someone who will not mind how it is going to be constructed, but whose main concern is maybe just to make sure that they understand the design. Okay. Um, on the other hand, the construction drawing is meant for contractors, the builders. Okay, if you notice the furniture this time, the sala set, and also in the bedroom, they are drawn in hidden lines because anything that you draw here will have to be built. Okay, so if you draw them in solid, it means that the contractor has to provide the sofa, the chair, and the coffee table. Okay, but then you just wanted to indicate that okay, this furniture will be placed here. Okay, so at least that's a consideration when they work. I don't know why. Maybe when it comes to tile patterns, they want to make sure that it's centered somewhere because there's a sofa. Um, so that's one difference. So everything drawn in a construction drawing should be provided by the contractor. Okay, so don't make the mistake of drawing even the furniture um, unless they are in hidden line. Which also means that you don't need to draw the plants and the animals and the people there. No? You can do that probably in the presentation drawing, but not in a construction drawing. Most of our lecture now will be about how to make the construction drawing because it's easier to adjust if you just make a presentation drawing. Okay, so a construction drawing tends to be, the floor plan tends to be one of those plans that take up the whole sheet. No? This is, of course, this is from abroad, but they have the title block at the sides, and then you only see the floor plan in this one sheet. Okay, as much as possible, that's what we also try to do. Um, because the floor plan is very important. Some exceptions are when the project is very small. Okay, so like even if you draw it at scale 1:50, you still have so much space. Like you only make use like less than 1/4 of your sheet. Therefore, you can put in more. But especially for commercial buildings, um, okay, so normally you have one sheet for the floor plan. Okay, so if space permits, other minor elements might be drawn around it to fill up the sheet. Okay, but if there is some minor elements, it is better if it is related to the floor plan. So that, for example, some details, blow-up details of that. So the elements in a floor plan includes the following. You have the drawing title. In this case, this is the floor plan, first floor plan here. And then the walls and symbols. Okay, so you have walls, and then there are, in this case, I think we have like only one type of wall. Actually, we have two types because I'm not sure if this is a wall, but you although this is a railing along the deck, but the low wall is also presented like this one. Then you have the doors and windows with their corresponding symbol. We have to learn how to draw the doors, no, properly. The name of the rooms, fixed cabinet, shelves, plumbing fixtures, and other built-in items. And then changes in elevation if you have to step up or you have a stair. And then notes and dimensions. Um, I missed out, no? Drawing titles, scale, and north sign. So we have a scale here. Again, this is English system, but this could be like scale 1 is to 100. And then the north sign. This is something that is missed out by most architects. No, I'm specifically referring to graduates of architecture and licensed architects. Sometimes they missed out the north sign in the first floor plan. Why is it necessary? Um, there's a lot of reason because when you actually go into the field and you construct, there are things that you will have to where you have to consider where the north is, and then you cannot go on looking for the site depth just to look for the north. And then sometimes the site depth is not very clear whether especially if your floor plan is like square, so where is really the front here? So at least if it is in the first floor plan, so it's faster. Now all the information are there. Now, if you have a multi-level plan, you have a second floor and a third floor. Make sure that they're aligned. Okay. We went through the orthographic projection. Again, there were issues about alignment in the drawing in some of your submissions. Each level is aligned with the one above for bearing walls, stairways, ductwork, and other vertical elements related to both floors. Okay, so make sure. That's why we use tracing paper, because we can just trace over the ground floor to make sure that the stairs are actually the same location when it's up, when it's reflected on the second floor and third floor, etc. And then the walls actually align. Okay. Um, in CAD, it's more difficult, but we can just arrange the drawings around the space, the workspace, and make sure that they're aligned. The stairs, I'm teaching also design 3, and one of the exercise, one module is how to draw the stairs. I was a bit surprised, but of course, because this is where you're supposed to learn how to draw a stair. But then in that case, in that design subject, we have to teach more than just drawing the stair. We have to know how to design the stair and the different kinds of stairs. But well, for basics, from the first floor going up, you have to put an arrow, okay? So, and then you can cut the stairs somewhere there, maybe 1.2 meters from the ground, from the floor. And then the rest, this is an option. You can draw the rest of the stair using hidden line, or you may not draw it. It's not necessary to draw it, especially if you have a space under the stair, like for some it's a storage room, for some it's a bedroom for Harry Potter, or for it can also be a toilet, a very small toilet. In the second floor, so one side goes up, the other side goes down. So you still cut it, but then this time you draw the rest. Or say going up is cut here, because you know it's from 1.2 from the floor, you cut the whole house, and then going down you see everything. So you have also an arrow that says down. Okay. In one book they call this the Hong Kong style. I don't know, because maybe this is used in Hong Kong, and then the author is influenced by that, no? So if this is a 3-story building, in the third floor you don't go up anymore. So instead of a stair going up, you just have a railing, so you don't put up. But instead, you can see the stairs going down, and it's complete because you don't cut it. So you have the arrow that goes um, that makes a U-turn, and then you put down. Okay, so you have to indicate which is up, which is going up, and which is going down. Okay, so you cannot do this reverse, no, where the up is shown like complete, and then the down is the one that you break, because you did not cut your house at the bottom, you cut it at the top. So the stairs going to the top is the one affected by the cut. If you have a mezzanine floor does not take up the whole space. Okay, maybe only half, or maybe in this case, I think it's like 3/4. Okay, so what happens to the other space where there is no floor? So here we say, or you can just put open to below. Okay, in some draftsmen would put an X to indicate that this area within the X is open to below. Okay, so there's no need for you to redraw what you can see below. For example, if below here you have a sala set, and even if this were um, a presentation drawing, you don't need to draw here the sala set that you saw below, that you see below. Okay, and especially in construction drawing, no need to do that. It might confuse the draftsman. I mean the builders. So scale. Floor plans are drawn at a scale that best presents the information to be conveyed without being too small to read. We also had an exercise on scale. Okay. Um, Residential floor plans are relatively small in overall square footage and are generally drawn at a scale of 1:50 metric scale. Okay, so 1:50 is considered like a good minimum for residential plans. Um, there are engineers and some architects who draw the floor plan at 1:100. Okay, so and it's even a construction drawing. Maybe this is good if the house is very simple. Okay, a commercial building can have the 1:100 scale, or even the larger 1:200 scale. No? Um, Sometimes you need to enlarge some parts to show more details. And then they are keyed to the base plan. So you need to put a base plan, the whole plan, and then you need to encircle what part is enlarged, and then you show the enlarged plan. It's a smaller scale. So one should always indicate the scale of the floor plan on the sheet, generally under the title. In this example, it's not under the title; no, it's right at the others at the other side. But what we do is generally it's right below the title. Okay, so you can do it in any way. Design it in any way, like it's a full justified. Like here is the scale, and then the other side you have the 1:100, or just left justified, etc. As long as it is indicated. Now, doors and windows is very tricky when we draw floor plans. Um, Doors are drawn in the plan view in an open position. Now, when I had a training in documentation of heritage structures, and my professor was a Japanese, they told me that you have to draw the door in closed position. Okay. Now, I realized later that because we were doing something different, there's a way of drawing the floor plan when it is already built and you are simply documenting it. And then there's a way of drawing the floor plan when it is not yet built. You're still designing it. Okay. So what we're learning now is the other one, the latter, where we're still designing it. Okay. If this were a conservation class, when we are documenting structures, especially old structures, there's a new set of standards used for drawing existing buildings. But here, it has to be drawn open and like 90 degrees open, like most of these. And if you notice, there are also some doors here which are just open partly, okay, like 45 degrees. Um, this is an exemption if there's a lack of space. Sometimes it's also used for aesthetics, but generally it's like this, no, it's like 90 degrees. I noticed in the bathroom exercise that when you draw the door, you draw it like it is really very thin, okay? So a door, if the scale is this big, or the scale is small, the drawing is big, um, you have to measure the thickness also of the door leaf. Okay, so that's less than 50 millimeter, sometimes 35 millimeter commercially. Okay, so don't draw it like it's a piece of paper or a plywood. Okay. Um, okay, so let's not dwell on that so much. So there are many types of doors, and so there are different ways of drawing them. So this is the typical door. Um, the door draw as a heavy line or with the thickness, and then the arc for the swing is shown like this. Please use a compass or a circle template when drawing the arc. A lot of you are very, very confident with your freehand, and apparently your drawing does not show your confidence. No, it shows a very, very crooked, a very, very wavy line or arc. If it opens like full swing, it's like this. It's double acting. It also swings the other direction. You can show it like this. This is shown in hidden line, the other side. No? And if it's a folding door, it's shown like this. If it folds only on one side or it folds on two sides. And then a folding accordion is like this on one side or two sides. And then you have a sliding where they bypass, um, one hides onto the other door, or maybe it slides along the surface. It looks like this, or maybe it pockets. No, it inserts itself inside the wall. This is normally used in very small space, like walk-in closets. So we show it like this, and then you have the revolving door. Um, and then the overhead, which is used for the garage. So the garage door, unless it rolls only, so it actually it's like awning. So the whole dimension of the door goes up and then like floats on the ceiling in a horizontal position. So you show the position of that door in that position. Um, okay, so this one is shows double door, one is inactive. This is rarely done. Normally you show both as active. And then you have the swinging glass door, okay? Um, so this is not a concrete wall, it's glass. So you have to show only the frames. So the doors, we actually label them. Okay, why? Because even though we present them in such a way, like in this drawing, this is a double door, this is a single swing door, and this is a sliding door here. Although we can know that, there are other things that we have to know about the doors, like what material is used, what hardware is used, or whether there should be a glass on the door or not. So there's a design. Okay, so along with the floor plan, we have another sheet which we call the door schedule. Okay, and then that door schedule contains all the information about the door. Now, to it, to point to the floor plan, so we have to label the door in the floor plan. There are two ways of doing that. One is by group or type. For example, all the same type of doors are numbered in the same way. Okay, we normally number them using B and the number. In this example, it does not. They just make use of numbers, no, with the circle and then the number. So, for example, all the D1s are double swing door, the same, exactly the same design. Okay, if you have another swing door with a different design, maybe this swing door has a glass, so that's door two. And then all the single swing door is door three. But then if all this there's another set of single swing door, but the dimensions like 70 cm, while the rest are 80 cm. So that's another door. That's a door four. So that's the per group or type. The other one, which we do not use in the Philippines, is to label each door individually. I think this example here is done that way, assuming that this double door here are exactly the same, but they are labeled differently. This is number 42, this is number 43. Okay, that's more versatile in terms of changes later on. For example, when the client suddenly says that, I want this one door to have this feature, and yet you group them already according to the same type, according to type. So that's a big change in the drawing. So, but if they are numbered individually, so it's just easy. Okay, this is particular door, you change the information in the door schedule, so it's easier. But again, this is not as popular as the first one. And in our conventions, in our class, we use the per group or per type, okay, labeling. So just like doors, there are also so many types of windows, okay. Um, and then there are many ways of showing them in plan and elevation. But let's focus first on the plan. So a window can be fixed, meaning to say you do not move it. So it's just shown simply as this. You show some jump and then the glass. A casement swings on one side, or maybe double casement swings on the two sides. It's shown like this. Um, Actually, another way of showing it is that um, this is not shown in hidden line. It's shown like a door, like a small door. Okay, so it's solid line. Single and double hung, when you slide the window up, looks like the fixed. And then awning and hopper, awning it swings up and hopper it swings down. So looks like this with the position of the panel when it is in the up or down position. And then in the elevation, it shows where the hinge is supposed to be located. So it's an arrow, so indicates hinge action. Then the sliding, you see the two panels side by side, depending on the design of the slide. The jalousie window, here the plan shows there is um, a hidden line that shows the position of the blades when they are in horizontal position, like the awning. But in the Philippines, we sometimes represent the jalousie as like the fixed. Okay, so we don't bother with this. Pivot is like this, projected. Okay, um, and then bay windows and the bow. So it just the drawings are self-explanatory. So drafting standards. Okay, so what are the ways that we should draw the other elements. Now, what I'm presenting here are wall types used in the United States. In the Philippines, are in terms of residences, our options are very limited. We either have the concrete wall or the wooden wall. Okay, so the wooden wall is like your frame here, the first one. So you can show it as open, but you use a dark or a bold line, or you have a solid hatch. Okay. Now, if this were a construction and a blow up, so you show the way it's constructed. But otherwise, if it's just the floor plan, um, for general floor plan, you can show the designation this way. Okay, so this is almost the same. Um, what is, since we only have two types in the Philippines, so we either have the frame or we have the masonry. So we'll focus on those. Okay, let's not bother ourselves with this. This is just to show you that in the US and in other parts of the country where the system is more varied, more options. So there are ways of indicating them in the plan. So here, normally what we do is we either have a solid hatch and then to represent the masonry wall, and then an open drawing like this, open wall to represent the frames, the wooden wall. Okay, but then sometimes this is mistaken to mean a low wall because it is not cut. Okay, so therefore it's not hatch. So this could be, the solid hatch could be the wooden wall, and then the masonry wall is presented like in another way. Okay, so what is important is that you have a wall legend. So because there's no really one way of doing that, no? Unless you're in the States and you follow the conventions. But in the Philippines, it's more subjective. Therefore, please make a wall convention to show which is wooden, which is masonry, and which is a low wall. Or if there's another type of wall, like maybe this is a glass block wall. Okay. Um, And also, if you are doing a renovation, there are walls which are existing, but they are retained. So there's another symbol for that. And then existing, but they should be removed. Okay, so there's another symbol for that. Normally, it's shown in hidden lines. So there used to be a wall here that you're removing. So that's the indication. Of course, we also went to alphabet of lines and line types, and this is the main application for it. Um, Here, what we wanted to emphasize is how you would present objects which are not shown in the floor plan when you cut them because they're above the cutting plane. I'm referring to the cupboards here. Okay, so there are cabinets above, so they're shown. In fact, we have this in one of our exercises, no? Um, and then we also, these ones, the furniture are shown in hidden line. And then in this drawing, so the counter here, for example, makes use of a medium line weight, and then the tiles are supposed to use fine line weight, or sometimes you even use a pencil. So just to indicate them there, but then to distinguish them from the main objects or the main cabinets and furniture. You really have to watch out for these line weights because I noticed that a lot of you, I think you use the same pen all throughout, no? So I'm not very strict about what type of pen you're using. whether it's the expensive one or even just the pilot felt tip pen. But as long as the output is distinguishable, what is light, what is medium, and what is heavy. Okay, you have to make sure of that. So different pattern can be used on the floor plan to denote a change in the floor treatment, such as the grid pattern in the kitchen and utility room. So we already mentioned that. And this is in terms of scale. Okay, I think I showed this slide before. Um, Depending on the scale, again, so the level of drawing depends on the scale. So if your scale is small and the drawing is very big, you can show more details, and even the hatch is more, say, more representative of what it should be, what the material is. But then, the smaller the drawing, the lesser the detail. Okay, so the lesser the detail. In our bathroom exercise, the funny thing is the way you draw it in scale 1 is to 20 is also the way you draw it in scale 1 is to 100. Okay. And in most cases, I have to keep on writing there that there is no need to show the tiles when the drawing is scale 1 is to 100. It's very small. Okay. Um, so that was the reason why I want you to draw it in different scale, no? Whether you have learned your lesson that the smaller the drawing, the lesser the details. Yet all the details in the big drawings, you put them in the small drawings. And also, just because the drawing becomes smaller doesn't mean that the labels and the dimensions also become smaller. Okay? When we make a construction drawing, you'll have different drawings there of different scales. But then the size of the letters remain the same. Okay, you don't have big letters here, big dimensions here, small dimensions there. They should be the same throughout in that sheet of paper. Okay, so please keep that in mind. So when it comes to windows, again, the smaller the drawing, the lesser the details. Okay, so that also means that the bigger the drawing, the more details. So don't show me a big drawing and then you only show one line for the window. Okay, so that spells laziness. The windows in the dining room of this partial plan are drawn in some detail as the scale of the drawing is fairly large. Okay, here, referring to this casement window here. So graphic and text notations, room names. So in the floor plan, each room should have a name. In some more complex floor plans, there's even a number, okay, a room number. And it's actually more preferable if you are very systematic, you're an OC type of person, because it's easier to, to look for to distinguish one room from another if they have the same label. For example, storage. You can have as many storage rooms in a house or a building, and yet when you want to refer to a particular storage room, it's better if there's a number. The number can indicate, for example, the first number can indicate the floor, the second can indicate maybe a wing, so it's easier to look for it. No? I was not able to look for a sample which shows the numbers, but normally they're placed before the name, say, and then it is inside a square or rectangle box, and then, for example, it's like 201 in box and then storage. If the space is not enough to contain the text for the name of the room or name of the space. So you can put it outside and then use an arrow like here. This space is for gases. So the text is placed outside and then it's pointing inside. Or this one is hygiene storage. So it cannot fit here, so you put it outside and then you have a leader. In presentation drawings, where there are no dimensions outside, normally the size of the room is placed below the room names. Okay. Now, sometimes we need to put some notes because we don't know how else to draw them, no? To express them in terms of drawing. Like when we put a TV above here and then it doesn't seem, we're afraid that this might be misunderstood for a cabinet or something else. So we can put a note, no? TV above. Um, or like there's a step here, but we cannot tell them that this 7 inches or that it's going up instead of down. So we can put a note. And then we have a low wall here, but there's no way of indicating how high that low wall is. It's low, but how high. So it's a 4 feet high wall. So, and then it has a wooden cap. So there are things that we have to indicate by notes. So these notes are kept to a minimum in order not to clutter the drawings and are lettered at the same or smaller height than the room names. So the room names normally are the biggest, and then the text and the dimensions the same height. And avoid having too many, so just the important ones. And then if you realize that there are so many important notes to put here, uh, you might as well draw a blow up plan of that space and then put all the notes there. Okay. Column grid. Okay, I'm sure some of you have seen this. So columns are usually assigned a grid number and reference to the column center line for dimensioning purposes. Okay, so to dimension. Um, The grid consists of numbers along one axis and letters of the alphabet along the others, so that one can easily pinpoint a specific column such as D2 or C4. So D2 refers to this and C4 refers to this. So therefore, the column grid is supposed to help you look for a particular column. Okay, so that's the logic behind it. So um, what's important, therefore, is that all columns should be accounted for. Okay, all columns should be named or labeled through the column grid. So if you have another column somewhere in the middle here, and then you have to put a grid here. Okay, and then if it is something that was added after you already wrote your 1 to 5 here, what some architects normally do is they put 2 prime, okay, or 2 or something else, or 2a, small letter a, and then here's a prime or a1, a small one or something. If there's more than one. So what's important is that all columns are accounted for. And then you dimension from this. Why? Because when we construct, we first put the columns. Okay? And so from the columns, we refer to the other elements. So we dimension from them. So for example, if we have something here, we dimension to the nearest column grid. So we get the measurement from B and then uh, put the dimension there. Okay. A center line is drafted as a series of single dashes and long line passing through the column. A column designation bubble sized for the appropriate lettering within it is placed at the end of this line. So these are the bubbles where you put the names, the letters, and the numbers. And then these are center lines. Okay, so the grid shows the construction drawing. So when you draw your floor plan, put this first, the columns, the walls, and then the grids before any other details. Because chances are, if you forget to put this and put this last, you might be like drawing over some text and numbers along it. Okay, so and you can't avoid it anymore. In some cases, such as at ends of column, the reference line might be to the face of a column instead of the center. In this case, a notation is added to point out this exemption. Okay. Now this is made of the column here is made of steel, so therefore this is the face of the column. Okay. And so, but the rest are labeled in the center. Now going back, if you notice at the ends, um, we dimension it from the face of the column, but in the center, we dimension it from the midpoint or the center. Okay, um, this is actually a very good practice, although this can be confusing to some builders who are probably used to looking at dimensions always from the center. In which case, you have to, in your drawing, it has to be very clear that you're actually pointing at the end. Okay. Now, section line. One of our lessons later will be sections, but before making the section, we have to show where we are making the section in the plan. Okay. So in this case, there are two section lines. Section A, right here on top in bedroom number 1, and also section B here near the kitchen. Okay, this is how we indicate. Um, but in the Philippines, normally we do it like on both sides until the end. So we're going to section from here to here. Therefore, we have also a counterpart of this right at the bottom. Okay, if we are going to section from here to here, so we have a counterpart of this at the other side here. Okay, so we use this symbol, the circle, and then there's a triangle, and then you shade this part here, and then you put here the information. The information here is that this one is, it says here that this is the section name, and this is the sheet number. But again, in the Philippines, it's different. And even in AutoCAD, because AutoCAD also has automatic features and uses a certain convention, the name, the label above is the drawing number. For example, you have in one sheet you have 5 drawings, so therefore each drawing is numbered accordingly. This is drawing number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so if the section in a particular sheet number 12 is drawing number 4, so it's 4 over 12. Okay, so that if I look for the section drawing of this, I go to sheet number 12 and I look for drawing number 4. Okay, so I see the section drawing of this one. Now, of course, I said sheet number 12, but the convention in the Philippines also makes use of a letter, and it's also the same in most countries and also in AutoCAD. So, for example, this is architectural, this could be A12. Okay, so drawing number 4 over A12, sheet A12. Okay, this is the same thing. Then we also have elevation keys, and I think no, we have not tackled this. No, elevation keys refer to these ones here. So they're like the section bubble, but then you have the the arrow is not shaded. So it simply means that you have a drawing for this wall. Okay, And then, so where's that drawing? It's drawing number 6 on sheet number 3. So that's what it means. So 5 over 3 means this is drawing number 5, sheet number 3. Okay, so it may be a detail of this wall. But to sometimes there are many ways of doing it in the section and the elevation. Symbols could be different. Some elevation symbols do not have the tails at the sides here, only the ones at the front. Although I prefer this better because this one looks a bit funny. So if you're going to blow up a room, okay, so that's the elevation symbol is used when you try to blow up a wall. But if it's the room that you're going to blow up, you have to, how do you call this? Okay, you have to enclose it in a box like this in hidden line, and then there's a leader and then the number, the reference number. Okay, this tells us that there's a blow up of this room at sheet A4, drawing number 6. Okay, so if I look for it, I go to sheet A4 and look for drawing number 6. The same method can also be used to show details on other features such as column or other specialized assembly. For example, I wanted to blow up, instead of a room, I wanted to blow up this lavatory for some reason. Or maybe this grab bar, I want to make a blow up of this. I do the same thing. So I enclose it in a hidden with hidden lines and then put the reference number. So dimensioning. Um, so sometimes after a plan is drawn accurately to scale, its reproduction causes a slight enlargement or reduction of the drawing, especially now that even if you print it in PDF, you might miss out the options where it says scale to fit or actual size. Sometimes we make the mistake of clicking on scale to fit, so it makes the drawing smaller to fit the paper instead of its actual size. No? So the floor plan is slightly out of true scale. So, but this is acceptable because the written dimensions are the controlling factors. So as long as the dimensions are there, there's no problem. In fact, most designers add a note on the drawing that says, do not scale drawing, follow written dimensions. Okay. Why? Because the problem is if there are no dimension, automatically engineer or some architects or even the foreman would get the scale. And then if it is said that this is drawn scale 1:50, they would measure it using the scale from the drawing. Okay, but then if your drawing is not actually to scale, it's distorted somehow. So the foreman gets the wrong data and applies it. It happened when I was working in Manila, and it's a good thing that it happened to a very small thing because a drawing of a dove, which is placed on the ceiling of a chapel, was supposed to be maybe this big, but then it ended up very small when it was done because of the measurements. Now, it was not clear when the foreman was trying to measure it from a drawing, which is not really properly scaled. Dimensioning is done in a hierarchical manner. So building, structural framework, rooms, and fixtures are dimensioned in decreasing size order. So the actual number of dimensions on a plan is dependent upon how much latitude the designer affords the contractor. So an over-dimensioned plan allows the builder little freedom to make field adjustment, especially. So it has to follow all the plans, so there's no room for error. But then also there's no room for, I don't know, creativity. Too few dimensions can produce a lot of guesswork and increase the chances of error in the field and coordination between subcontractors. So there should be just the right amount of dimension, but the essential ones. Okay, and normally 3 levels of dimensions is enough. You can have a bit more if you want. And then the first level is always the overall dimension. Okay, you cannot have the overall dimension down here near the walls because all of these extension lines will cut through the overall dimension. And then after the overall dimension, you dimension each contour or each profile of the, or change its profile of the whole building. Like this wall is dimensioned, then that wall, and then this wall. And then the third layer is some features in each wall, like fenestrations or window openings. So this one here is dimensioned. Hi, here's an example of a room with a number. So the late, it's a lab, it's room number 143. I mentioned to you that it is enclosed in a rectangle box. So frames refer to wooden walls. So generally, elements such as walls are dimensioned to the frame as the builder first erects this and then adds the finishes to it. This dimension technique gives the exact location of the studs. Okay, so if this were a small drawing, so there's no problem with the dimension. But if it is this detailed, so the dimensions actually starts from the studs, these ones here inside. It does not include the finishing, the covering wall, because this wall can vary in thickness, and then you can also put many layers here. Okay, so and then so the dimension of this wall is already the thickness of the material, so it's not necessary. What is necessary is these structural elements. So I think we mentioned this already earlier, but exterior walls of a building are dimensioned outside the floor plan, okay? As much as possible outside the floor plan. At least for all these elements, overall dimension, major wall dimension, walls, doors, and windows, they should be put outside. Sometimes you cannot avoid putting dimensions inside, like there's another wall inside, so it's okay as long as they're not these ones, they're not the major ones. Doors and windows are dimensioned from the center. Okay, so these are for framed walls, like wood, a wooden wall. So you dimension from the center. So the foreman or the builder will look for the center and then measure out going out. Now, if it's a concrete wall, the opening is dimensioned. Okay. And then if the door is very near a wall, there's no need to dimension it. For example, this one, there's no need to dimension where it is going to be located. This one, there's no need to dimension where it's located because it's understood that as much as possible you put them at the side. Okay, so it's up to the builder now to decide. And then the orientation of the dimension, so you can put them above the dimension line or in between, so the line should not cross the number. Or if it has to be sideways, it should be read from the right side. So if I tilt my head to so from this side, if I'm here, so I can read this 2 feet and 3.5 inches. So you cannot have the dimensions going all around, upside down, and then to the left and then to the right. No? So that's not the correct convention. And then if it does not fit inside the dimension line, so you can put an arrow or a leader like this, and then put it outside, and make sure that it is easy to find. No? it's easy to distinguish that this one is actually referring to this one here, or this one is referring to that one. Okay, so that I think that was the last one. I'm presenting this again, and I'm presenting this. This was just emailed to us this morning, and then this is supposed to be the exercise or assignment of everyone, but I'm giving a different assignment. But I wanted to show you um, what they're giving us. So here we have the section line, detail section. This one we used it when we wanted to detail only a part of a section of a wall, so not the whole space. So that's why it ended there. The cutting plane, the door index we do it this way. We also label the windows. In the Philippines, we make use of a hexagon. Okay, and it has caught on, so you might as well just follow it also. Elevation marker is not needed for now because we're talking about plans. North sign, you can do it in different ways, but the simpler the better. These are column index, this should be a letter. Drawing title, so this is the drawing number and then sheet number, center line, property line. We'll talk about property line when we talk about site development plans. And here are some hatches which can correspond to materials, like if this is a 150 millimeters or 6-inch wall or a 8-inch wall, CHB wall, um, concrete or reinforced concrete or the ground soil. We do not use this in plan. These are for sections, so okay. So no need. The grass we can use, the tiles we use. Okay. So they're supposed to draw this, but this is just copying, so it's not a very good idea to just copy. You can see that there's only one plan in one sheet of drawing, and then they have the dimensions, and then in this case they have three layers of dimension here. You have the section lines, and then you have the stair here. You have to draw two floor plans because there's a second floor plan. So this is a presentation drawing because the furnitures are drawn complete. There are even plants, although the dimensions are placed outside, are included. Okay, and then they also include the elevation window index. So what I want you to do is to make a floor plan, but based on, okay. Okay, so anyway, before we go to that, let's just review some, a checklist, okay? For general, okay, you need to have the title, you need to title the drawing, note its scale, and indicate the north. Okay, we mentioned that. Draw all doors in direction of operations where it's going to swing. Draw all windows to scale and show the mullions. Mullions are the frame inside the jamb, the frames inside the jamb. Number and symbol code all doors and windows. We call them indexes. Check door swings and window operations for possible conflict with other elements and views. So your window should be able, or door should be able to open fully and not get obstructed by something else or not serve as an obstruction. Number or name all rooms and spaces. Show stairways and include an arrow to indicate up or down from the floor level. Call out the number of risers and treads and cross-reference if a detailed drawing is made of the stairs elsewhere. This numbering of the risers and treads is not necessary, okay? That's why I did not bring it up. Draw a dashed line for major soffits or openings above and call them out in a note, including attic and access panels. So this is like your cupboards. They're not included in cutting the house in horizontally because they're above the cutting plane, but you have to include them So, but then when you draw them, you have to indicate, okay, what are you referring to here? What are these dashed lines? Draw handrails, guardrails, and half-height wall and call out with a note where necessary. So I don't know how to pronounce this, so I will not dare. And reference to a wall type legend, but this refers to hatch, apply hatch, okay, to the walls and reference to the wall type legend. Okay, the wall type legend is very important. I will insist on it. Draw in fixed cabinet shelves, plumbing fixtures, and other built-in items. Now, in terms of notation, note any floor level changes, slopes, and ramps. Okay, if you're especially going to the toilet floor is supposed to go down. Okay, therefore, when you draw the door, there should be a line along the threshold. Okay, because there's a change in elevation. And sometimes, if it's not very obvious, you have to indicate the change in elevation, whether it's 2 inches, 4 inches, or what, or in millimeter. Call out floor drains where applicable. Cross-reference the floor plan with section and elevation symbols for information about the building structure. So these are the cross-referencing we learned earlier. Label major components such as fireplaces, bookcases, built-in furniture, refrigerators, dishwashers. This is very important because in the design tree, among the design tree students, normally they don't label. No? They just make a rectangle and then makes you guess what that is, whether it's a refrigerator, a dishwasher, or something else. Call out miscellaneous items such as medicine cabinets, drinking fountains, and other built-in items. Include here or reference another drawing information. Yes. Wait, nagkuhan pa ko.
Pero nasa ako na like charge ani kita duggan gani sa kuan ani why? Nake why dai?
Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption. Um, okay. Um, so dimension all wall locations and place a general note indicating whether the dimensions are to face of a wall, center line, or other surfaces. Dimension walls and other items to structural components such as columns or existing walls Give the angles in degrees of walls. So if there are angles, it's important to give the angle of that wall. Um, Give the radius or diameter of circular elements, dimension on horizontal openings, partitions, and general cabinetry. So chapter 9 for stairs. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. Um, there's a sketch here. I got this also from the internet. This is not mine. So you have to draw this properly to construction drawing, but then you have to make sure you have to convert all the measurements into metric, and then you draw at ink in ink, sorry, a scales 1 is to 100 in a letter sized copy paper. Okay. I would not use the A4 because A4 is narrower. So A3 letter size is wider because at scale 1 is to 100. So this is quite big for the paper. So you're left with a tight space for dimensions. But please be wary about the presentation. Okay, so although this is just an exercise and this is just um, this is construction drawing, it has to look neat. It cannot look cramped and then dimensions are forced, etc. Okay, so um, I'm going to upload this as a separate file so that you can probably download it and print it for reference or look at it with more detail uh, in a while. Um, so the deadline will be earlier. I'll make it this Friday night, because I want to have time on Saturday to check it. So the bad thing about the Saturday midnight is that I don't really have time on Sundays to check. So Saturday is a good time. That's why I'm behind schedule. Okay. Um, Basically, that was it. And I hope that it's very clear to all of you. I'm looking for, wait. Okay. Do you have any questions? Okay, so it took us more than 1 hour. Anyway, so please just wait for the posting. By the way, although I mentioned that deadline is on Friday, actually this is more for me to be able to check, but I will not be very strict with late submissions. Okay. Um, but for the midterm grade is June, November 7. There are some of you who have not completed all the requirements. You have until tomorrow to do it. I will try to post or to inform those people who do not have complete requirements. If you're not able to complete it, your grade will be INC, meaning incomplete. Okay, so I cannot wait forever. Okay, and then there's a question about whether we can use tracing paper. Yes, you can use tracing paper. Mm, but we don't have two floor plans, so what's the point? But anyway, you can use tracing paper if you want, but the size has to be um, a short band paper. Um, Actually, if you think about it, even if you use A3 so that you have enough space for dimensions, you can, no? Because what you're going to submit is a picture or a scanned image. So, so I won't be strict about the size of the paper also. Okay, so that's it. And I hope that you do your best in this